Hi everyone, and welcome to a very special success story. Meet Andrea, who was one of our students, and what we're going to do in this video is Andrea did the test 10 times?
Yeah,
about
more or less.
And she was telling us about all the mistakes that she made, and what we'd like to do is share those mistakes with you guys so that you can avoid making those mistakes and you can get the score that you need next time. So we're kind of fast tracking you to getting the score that you need, and we'll also talk about how we helped her get a band 8 overall. She managed to go from a band 5 to a band 7 in writing, and now we're sitting in Cambridge where she is going to be living and working. And why don't we just start off by you introducing yourself to everyone? So.
Yes, of course, Chris. Well, my name's Andrea. I'm from Venezuela, which is in South America. And I started this journey 1 year ago, more or less. So it was when I finished my training as an oncologist, and I decided to start preparing this exam. And in that moment, I never thought that it would be so hard. Mainly because it's true that the main thing is that you have to point out that you are making a mistake and you are not so good as you thought you were. Mm-hmm. And the other thing is that you have to work on your mindset, because it's not easy to be constant and disciplined with your studies and at the same time dealing with frustrations and failures and rejection. Mm-hmm. So I did a lot of mistakes, many mistakes.
Well, that's good for our audience because they can avoid them now. So.
Yeah. So when I found Chris Academy and I saw that video about the mistake that you shouldn't avoid or you shouldn't do, and when I saw that video, I said, I did all those mistakes. So I wish I didn't, but I did, and it was part of my journey, and hopefully these kind of things will help someone.
Not so good for you because you wasted a lot of time, a lot of money, and thousands of dollars. But we got you there after you joined our academy, and we'll be able to help people now. So what are some of the big mistakes that you made that led to you failing the test?
Well, the first thing is that, the main problem with the IELTS is that you are not able to find a reliable source of information. So part of my journey, I did it alone. So I didn't know anything about the exam, the structure, how to study, how to prepare this exam. So, for example, I took my first exam just to know the experience and to know about the exam, and it was a huge mistake because you felt like you know nothing. And the listening part, I got lost, and the reading, I was rushing myself, and the writing, I didn't have time to just write one task. I was one task too. So, and the speaking, it wasn't myself who was there, and I fell. I obtained in that exam the listening 5.5, the reading 6, the writing 5, and the speaking 6. So
yeah. And did you feel like giving up then, or because a lot of people that's what happens? They go and they do the test because they think it's just an English test. I have good English. I'll go and do it, and then they have a very bad experience like you had, and they're just like, this is not for me, I'm not doing this again.
No, I didn't feel in that way with the first exam. What I felt in that moment is the time of the level of English that I was required, it was so far the one that I was obtaining. So I felt like, this is a lot of work and I don't know how to do it. So you felt a little bit overwhelmed. And it was a moment that I started to study grammar on my own. So I bought a book and I was doing my exercises and trying to, but it takes you time because you are studying and you don't know if what you are doing is okay or not. And then I did another mistake. That I was to take a general course.
Yeah.
It was so expensive, and the amount of hours wasn't enough, and it wasn't personalized. So you never knew. So I never knew that what was my mistake.
Yeah.
So the only feeling that I got from that is, oof, this is so hard, and you have to, but you didn't have the guidelines, which step you should take in order to improve. So, and this feeling of anxiety and being stressed, and it was growing up, and you didn't know what to do, just to, I don't know, taking another test, just in case, just in case I was lucky, and I don't know, but no, don't do that.
So would you recommend that people just keep doing the test until they get the score they need?
No, no, don't do that, because the first thing is well, you have like two different persons in your mind. So the one is that, no, well, maybe if you do the exam again, maybe you are going to obtain your score. But the other has to be the honest. You have to be honest with yourself and say, come on, you are not going to jump from a 5 in your writing to a 7.
Yeah.
It's not possible. Or your listening 5.5 to a 7, the score that is needed to. So you have to work on that. And then what happens if you take the exam many times, that you are going to deal with the stress of being under exam conditions, and then to deal with when you are receiving your scores and it's not the one that you wanted. So it's like, oh, and you have to start again. So I don't recommend it to do that, even when I did it.
Yeah, I think a lot of people email us and say, like, can you help me? And we say, yeah, no problem, but you need to do all of this work, and you need to maybe join our course, which costs a certain amount of money. And they say, no, I don't want to do that. I said, well, you don't really have a choice. You can either spend the money failing the test over and over again, and spend the time failing the test over and over again, or you can actually learn what to do and spend, like, you probably spend about $2,000 on failing the test, whereas our course, when you joined it, it was like $350 or something like that. So it's not cheap. I know a lot of people, that's a lot of money for a lot of people, but it is a lot less than failing the test multiple times.
And well, the thing is, I have to say, because I was in that position and say, oh no, but I already booked my exam. But maybe it's because, well, in my case, I had like a deadline. So I had an extra pressure. And I can understand when people say, oh no, it's because I have to book the exam in 8 weeks, to wait for the results in 8 weeks, and so I can apply or whatever, because I was in that position. So it's difficult. So if you are there, I recommend you to work hard on your preparation, because it's true that it's hard, but it's not a guarantee that you are going to get your score.
And then I think a lot of people, they do the test maybe one time or twice without any preparation, and then they do what you did, which was, okay, I'll just go for a general course and see what the format is and see what's going on. But why does that not help?
Because it's not personalized. And sometimes I think that because it wasn't, I did two courses, and the other was a little bit more VIP, but it wasn't, because they change the professor every time, and I think that they make you feel better about what you were obtaining. Because I remember that I was in this academy, there was another one before I moved to England, and they say, oh yes, you are doing great, you are obtaining in a listening a 7, but I didn't feel that my English was improving for that time. It's true that I felt great for me, but for the result on paper, it's not the reality.
Well, what we hear from a lot of our students is, oh, my old teacher told me I'm doing really well, and they gave me lots of positive encouragement and said everything was great, and then I went and did the test, and then I failed. What we do is the complete opposite. We don't try and be your friend. We just try and get you the results you need, and we say, this is wrong, fix this, you need to work on this. And people often hate us for doing that. But as I say, I want you to be my friend when you get the results, not during the course. We're friendly, we're helpful, but I think I've been in that position too when I was first teaching people. You want to be friendly with them, and you want them to like you. So telling them the truth is
yeah. And that was one of the
it's-
mistakes that I was saying, oh, come on. And I remember my first feedback, and I say, for example,
From us?
Yeah, from you guys. This sentence doesn't make sense. It's not related with the subject, and that's it. Very cool. And I say, what? But maybe because you are not trying to, so you don't understand what I was trying to say. Say, no. Don't, so grammatically it's wrong, it's out of context, and I said, well, that's it. And it's worked for me because they, don't delete that part of your essay and work on that.
And it's, you had a good mindset about that. When sometimes when we do that with students, they're like, oh, they get really frustrated and they see it as an attack on them personally, and that's why we say no. It's we're not attacking you as a person. We're just trying to make your English better, trying to make your writing better, trying to make your speaking, your listening, your reading, whatever it is,
And it's also true that it was through your feedback, because before that, it's true that I was improving my writing skills, but I've never received a proper feedback.
Yep.
It's true that some native person, they were reading, and they can correct me certain things, but maybe the structure or certain, sometimes I receive like, this sounds weird, but sounds weird for me, it wasn't enough because I didn't know what was the mistake. So that was another great advantage of receiving the feedback from you, because it was there when I realized that I have problem with my word order, and that was because of my Spanish grammar structures. I was doing the in the other way around, and the preposition. Preposition. I was working with articles, but prepositions, and I had my list and things, and I was reading every time, but it's because I had my Spanish mind and things. So I was failing in every sentence, most of them, I think.
Yeah.
So I was working on that. I was just word order. And my preposition, and read again. If you're not sure, change the sentence or use another word. So, and that really helped me in improving my essays.
Yeah, it's really interesting to hear your story, because it is a very typical story of the test is not that difficult. I'll go and do it without any preparation, fail. Okay, I'll go for a general course, not get any feedback, look at some videos, look at YouTube, fail. And then you're like,
yes.
and then what was the next part of your journey?
I was consuming every type of video in YouTube about IELTS and professors.
It's so confusing, because one guy says this, another girl says the opposite, and you go into the test and your writing reflects the confusion in your brain, because you have no idea what to do.
No, exactly. And you have to follow a plan, which I didn't know that you have to.
Yeah.
I thought that you give me a pen and a paper and I'm going to write everything that is going through my mind, which is not the case.
No.
No, you have to, no. And then I thought that, for example, because in my first attempt that I just finished one task, that if I finish in the other, because if I obtain a 5 with just writing one, maybe if I finish the second one, I will obtain a 7, because, I don't know, just because of percentages or something, but no, it's because I didn't know what was the way that they evaluate my essay. I wasn't aware of that, the 4 areas, until you learn, and the moment that you learn that, is when you say, okay, can I understand what I'm when I'm writing? Can I don't know, it's any mistakes, it's what is your vocabulary, how many words are you repeating, even if you're repeating yourself, your vocabulary, can the examiners understand when you are writing? So I was
all over the place.
Yeah.
And I think the next part of the journey that people normally go on is they get help from a teacher who gives them good feedback, but then they come up against a new difficulty, which is mindset, because it's very difficult for someone to be constantly telling you, you're making a mistake, this needs to improve, you need to work harder, you need to get... What mindset things would you suggest people understand before they go on that journey?
Yeah, I think for me that was the only thing that it kept me continue doing this, because if you are in front of so much frustration, so much failure, you want to give up. So what I did is to change this approach to this exam. So I used to think, well, I think that while you're learning your English, trying to enjoy this. So everyone say, this is horrible. So for example, for me, writing an essay, it was my fear, because I didn't want to fail again. So in the moment I put in my schedule, Andrea, you have to write tomorrow 4 essays. I said, 4 essays sounds horrible, but I say, okay, Andrea, maybe 1 introduction, then the overview, and it was so much easy. And at the end of the day, I wrote, 4 essays per day.
Yeah, if you say to someone, you want to climb a mountain, and you look at the peak of the mountain, you'll never do it. But if you just say, I want to go 1 mile today and 1 mile the next day, you'll get up there. It's,
yeah. And the other thing is, because I was so focused on my writing, but I didn't want to write in that moment. But what I did was, okay, Andrea, so try to find another way to learn the English and how you can apply this in your studies. So I was listening, and I was reading and listening different news, and I was trying to explain myself, if like I was talking to myself at home.
Your neighbors must have.
If you had a camera on my house, you say, oh, come on, this lady is a little bit crazy. Yeah, because I was explaining in front of the mirror. So I knew that I was working on my idea generation. I was working on topics that I wasn't feel comfortable. So in the moment that I read a question that, I don't know, it was religion, I think that because that was the other thing. Oh, I don't have idea, I don't know how to write. So I found that by doing this, in the moment that I would have to write, it was so much easier. So, and at the same time, I was, learning new words, I was working on my vocabulary, I felt more confident in front of someone to explain my point of view. Because that was the other thing. At the beginning, you feel so frustrated because you are not able to express your opinion.
Yeah. So, and it'll help you here in Cambridge as well. You'll have a much richer life because you'll be able to meet new people and explain what you mean, and your work will be better and everything.
Yeah, exactly. So I said, Andrea, this is helping you. Come on, and I know that you don't want to write, but I changed my mind and say, Andrea, you have to enjoy this. Otherwise...
Yeah, we speak to a lot of people who say, I want to move to Canada, for example, and they're at a band 5.5, and we say, you should improve your vocabulary. I don't want to do that. It's like, why do you want to move to Canada? It's like, you want to move to Canada and not speak to anybody and not get a job and not do, this is not only going to help you with your IELTS preparation, but your life in general in your new country. So I think that's one of the goals, if you're lacking in motivation, is to not just think of it as a band score on the IELTS test, but improving your life in general, because your communication and skills and everything will improve. Yeah,
of course. So, for example, I remember that one of my first moments here that I wasn't able. I was in a place with many people, and I couldn't understand, or I couldn't participate in that conversation because, or I couldn't understand what they were saying, or if I wanted to say something, I didn't have the word to express my opinion. So I said, Andrea, change this, and in the moment that you start to improve this, your vocabulary, your grammar, and you are writing, because okay, you're going to do this and you're going to write because you know that this is your difficult part, and at the same time you are learning how to be yourself in another language.
Exactly.
So the worst thing that could happen is that you learn another language.
Exactly. The worst thing.
Seriously.
So let's talk a little bit about vocabulary. So we've talked a lot about the mistakes that you made and helping people avoid those. Now let's talk about how you got to this level and the scores that you got. And one of the things that you mentioned was vocabulary. How did vocabulary help you improve your scores, and how did you learn new vocabulary? How did you
Wow, for me, vocabulary was one of the main things that helped me to improve all the 4 areas. So what I did, I remember because I bought these books, Cambridge IELTS series 9 to, I did 9 to 13 books. So when I was doing the reading part, after I did the mock, I went back and I was checking all the words that I didn't know in that moment. But because it's true that you can't, in that moment, you can't identify what is the meaning because of the context. But I always check if I didn't know. So for example, I don't know, I knew what they wanted to say, but I wanted to be sure. And then from there, I learned about the word, the different usage of the word. So for example, it was a noun, what is the adjective, what is the verb, and how to use it. So it's true that each passage after I finished, it took me 1 hour at least. An extra hour just reviewing that, and then I was underlining, I don't know, what is the main idea, and after, I don't know, maybe after each day I had at least 20 words that I didn't know. So what I was trying to do is to work on that vocabulary that I didn't know that in that moment. At the end of the day, I was making sentences on my own. It could be very simple, because at the beginning I said, I don't know how to use it. The house is green, that's it. And then I was trying to incorporate all those vocabulary on my daily routine. So for example, if I want to express an idea or something. And this helped me a lot, for example, for the listening, because they are, if you want to find the answers, they're going to tell you a synonym. So you were working on that. In the reading, if you know a lot of words, you don't have to skim or scan, just you're reading faster because your comprehension is also improving. For the writing,
you're able to express your meaning, you're able to be more fluent.
And the speaking, obviously. So I have to say that working on my vocabulary, it helped me a lot.
It improves absolutely everything. And what you did is exactly what you should be doing. And a lot of people forget that you need to, if you're preparing for the test, you're going to be reading every day, you're going to be listening every day, so you're constantly going to be seeing new words. So do what you did, which is guess the meaning from context, then look the word up, and then use the words, review them regularly. You look at the different forms of the word, different synonyms, collocations, really learn them 100%, instead of what most people do is go online, try and find a list of band 9 words. There's no such thing, and it doesn't help you. You have to learn them, learn the words in context from real English, and review them and then use them.
Exactly. Otherwise, you're going to make more mistakes. Because if you just learned a list of words, this doesn't make sense.
And it improves reading, listening, speaking, writing, absolutely everything. So. Did you have a notebook like we suggest?
Yes. No, I think a huge notebook.
Full of new words and everything.
So then because I finished that word, it doesn't make sense. So I start to categorize all the.
Categorization is really good for reviewing and things.
So if I want to talk about education, health, so I was working in that kind of things, and then the idea generations. At the beginning it was hard because say, idea generation, how? So it's just reading. So the thing that I did was go to BBC News and go to health, education, science, technology. No politics, I didn't like it.
It's too boring.
It's too boring. It's too boring. And you have to try to do the most enjoyable part of this.
Because if you go to any news website, you'll see health news, education news, technology news, science news. What are the common topics on writing task 2? Health, education, technology, science. So if you read one of those articles per day, you're going to help with your idea generation, your vocabulary, your idea development, your examples, absolutely everything.
Example. Yes, of course, I'm working on that. So what I did with my idea generation as well, I had my notebook, is if I read something about health, I try to create a debate on my mind, and then also the different points of view, even when it wasn't my point of view, because
critical thinking, you know, seeing the other side of an argument and appreciating what other people would say about your argument, and all of those things are really important.
Yeah, because I didn't know if in the moment of the exam I have to contrast my ideas. So, and you obviously you feel more comfortable talking about what you believe.
Exactly.
But if you work in also what other people believe, in the moment that you have to write about that, you are not going to have any problem. So it's hard. I remember it took me time. Every day I was studying hard because I was also learning about different things.
Yeah.
So I thought, Andrea, it's not just exam, it's just also about learning new vocabulary.
We're learning about the world as well.
The world, yeah. I didn't have too much time. It was, to be honest, it's a great thing, because for me, in my case, I say, Andrea, because before I was studying medicine, and the only thing that I read was medicine, and now
you're a more well-rounded person.
So you have to look at this as a positive.
Excellent. And now so that's 25% of your marks in speaking and writing are going to be vocabulary. Another 25% are going to be grammar. How did you get over the grammar?
The grammar. The grammar for me was it was a nightmare, because I've never studied grammar before in my life. So never. I was able to talk, but I knew that I was talking in present or in past, and I didn't know anything. So what I did was I bought my grammar books, and I was studying each unit, doing the exercises. It wasn't so hard. So it was hard and slow, because I didn't have a teacher because sometimes when someone explains a particular chapter, you are able to understand because I don't know that the teacher told you something, and it's more easy to remember that. So I was working that every day. I think that I study 1 hour of grammar. 1 hour. So I did my one chapter of my book, some exercises, reviewing that, going back. So it was part of my. Otherwise, I couldn't improve.
And what would you say to someone who, let's say they don't even know that they're struggling with grammar, or they know they have a problem with grammar, but they don't know how to fix it? Apart from studying grammar, what would be your biggest piece of advice for them?
The thing is, if they don't know that they are struggling with grammar, I think that the best exercises to do is to try to express something to someone. Could be so easy as, can you describe me this, and what did you do yesterday? So if you are struggling with that, it's because you need help. You need help in your grammar and your structure of this. So find a professional help. I think, because you can do it alone, but it takes you time, and you don't know if you are doing well.
I'm not saying this because I want people to join our course or give me money. I'm saying this because if you don't get professional help with your grammar, you will have no idea the mistakes that you're making. And the analogy I always use is, if my car breaks down, I don't know anything about fixing a car. I bring it to a mechanic. If my little boy was sick, I wouldn't go onto YouTube and look up, his symptoms on YouTube. I would bring him to a doctor, because why do we hire experts? Because they know a lot more than us, and they're able to immediately identify the problems. And for most people doing the test that are like at about a 6 or so, it's not that all of their grammar is terrible. It's because 1 or 2 or 3 areas they make small mistakes, or they have fossilized errors. Like you, it was prepositions. For a lot of our other students, it is articles. For other students, it's punctuation. So a professional will be able to I can look at your writing and within 30 seconds say, you have a problem with this, this, and this. You need to work on that.
No, it's true. It's true that studying the grammar, it will help you, for example, for your speaking. So as you study everything, but you are not going to use the whole grammar on your essay. But if you don't know what are you doing wrong, you're never going to obtain the score that you wanted. So it's the best. The thing when I received my first feedback and I realized that I was making these mistakes, and I said, Andrea, you have to work that. And when I was producing each sentence, I was double checking these mistakes. So I said, okay, it makes sense. Verb, agreement, subject, things. It's not Spanish grammar. Okay, go.
Yeah.
So it was the thing that it helped me a lot.
No, it really does help. And what I'd also say about grammar is don't get too frustrated with it, because it can be little rules. Because I know how frustrating it can be for students who are like, but the rest of the sentence is fine. You know, there's just one tiny article or one tiny preposition or a comma, and it gets very frustrating. But the thing to remember is, let's say articles and prepositions are your two main weaknesses. They're in every sentence. So if you're making mistakes in every sentence, then you can't get over a 7, because to get over a 7 for grammar, most of your sentences need to have no errors whatsoever. And then if every sentence has a mistake, it also affects your coherence, because it's more difficult to read. So, you know, a lot of students get frustrated because they say, yeah, but my structure is good and my vocabulary is good and I answered the question, and it's just articles or it's just prepositions. It's like, I know, but you still need to fix it.
Yeah, it happened to me, and I say, but it's just a few prepositions. But then I felt relieved, because I thought, Andrea, it's just preposition.
Yeah.
So it's not like your grammar is so that no one can understand what you are saying. It's just preposition.
Yeah.
So just work on that. So it's easy.
And you told us you're going for a job interview here in Cambridge in a few days. If you went into the job interview and every sentence had a grammatical error in it, they might give you the job, but they might give it to someone else, because they say, you know, well, she might have a problem communicating with colleagues, or she might be writing a very important medical report and make lots of mistakes, you know. So hopefully it does help you with that as well.
Of course. I am, and this is another type of motivation. So I said, Andrea, this is so you are going to do this in your future. So you don't want to be misunderstood and have horrible mistakes, and so learn about this the best that you can do it. So I think you have to find what is your purpose of why you are doing this. So, and then work on that. But trying to visualize yourself each day. So I'm going to do this, because if you're not doing nothing each day, you're going to feel frustrated at the end of the week. And say, no, I haven't done anything. So I said, come on, but you have to work.
One thing we do in our company is we do something called Plan Tomorrow Today, where we force everyone we don't force them, we ask them to, before they finish work, the last thing that they need to do is they need to plan what they're going to do the next day, put it in their calendar, and then they send it to me. It's just small things like that mean that you wake up the next day and you're like, okay, I have to do this essay, read this thing, work on my vocabulary, and then you'll do it, you know. But if you wake up and you're like, I can't do this anymore, and then you watch TV, and then you know you're like, I'll go for a walk, and then you like come back, and then you get to the end of the day and you don't do anything.
Exactly. Yeah, it's something that well, I set my goals the night before.
Yeah. Exactly.
So, and I was working.
Even if you feel tired, do it. It takes 5 minutes and it makes a big deal.
And I said, and I remember I said, okay, I'm going to start with the most difficult for me. It was writing. Yeah. I'm going to do it.
Yeah, start with the most difficult.
The most difficult, because
start with that,
I did the other way around. Yes, I'm going to do the listening. I'm going to read some news. I'm going to talk to myself. And then when I was the time to write, I said, I'm so tired. I've been working so hard. Maybe tomorrow. So
there's a book called Eat the Frog, I think it is, but it's like eat the frog means that you do the thing that you hate the first thing in the morning, when you have the most energy, the most motivation, because your motivation will go down throughout the rest of the day. So, you know, and when you first start, the thing that you are struggling with the most, focus on that. Because once you turn those weaknesses into strengths, everything becomes much easier.
Yeah, it's true. I remember I finished my essays and the first things in the morning, and I remember in between I have, so you are going to do some exercises, and that was like, okay, Andrea, if you finish all those essays and then you read and you practice this, you're going to do exercises, and then you can do whatever you want. So, and then you're going to review and work on your feedback, and that thing, working on your feedback was so much easier than producing an essay.
Exactly.
So,
exactly. Yeah, I think that's something that even our other VIP students struggle with, where they'll do the course, they'll submit the writing, and we'll send them like 4 or 5 pages of feedback, and they'll say something like, "So where am I going wrong?" It's like, well, you have to look at we told you exactly what you're doing wrong, and then they say, "Well, what do I do now?" And it's like, fix those things, work on those things. And that's where you see the biggest improvement. Just doing essay after essay after essay after essay is a complete waste of time.
Yeah.
If it's better to do one essay and take action on the feedback than it is to do 100 practice essays and don't do anything, because you just make the same mistakes over and over and over and over again. So, and I that's difficult for people to understand, because they hear things like practice makes perfect. Practice does not make perfect.
No, in this case. Even when I did that, I don't know how many pages I wrote practicing my essays. But I remember one successful story in the Facebook group from one guy that he obtained an amazing score in the writing part. And one thing that I remember was that he said that he only submitted 3 essays.
Yep. A lot.
Yes.
There's no correlation between the number of essays that people submit and their success.
Exactly.
Normally the people that are most successful don't actually submit that many essays. So a lot of people don't join our course because they say, "Oh, you only correct 5 essays, you only correct 10 essays." And we explain this is on purpose because we want you to think about the feedback and take action on the feedback. And you can always buy more if you want to buy more. If you want to do 100, you can do 100. But we would recommend that you don't do 100. You only do 5 or 10 or 15, however many it takes. Because the story I always tell is, I had a friend who, he grew up on a farm. So his dad had an old car and said, just to let him drive around. And he was driving from, he was like 8 or 9 years old. And then he went to do his driving test and he failed over and over and over again, even though he had been driving for 10 years, because he had picked up such bad habits. So he had practiced for thousands of hours, but couldn't drive on the roads because, so just practicing is not the key. Practice, get feedback, think about the feedback, take action on the feedback, and then that's where the learning comes in.
Yeah, no, it's true. And be patient, because this is then another thing that we think that after we finish to look at the models and study the models and practicing everything, that it could be instantaneously that we are going to be able to produce a perfect essay.
Yeah, I can't watch Messi or Ronaldo play football and then go out and play for Barcelona. It's just the first step. Exactly. Watching a video is just that's why I get frustrated when I see videos on YouTube that say, watch this video and you'll magically get a band. You're like, no.
It's not gonna happen.
It's not gonna happen. It is the first step, but it's watch the video, then do the thing in the video, then get feedback and take action. So that's good. So one of the things that I made in my notes about you was that you struggled with time management, but I give you time management tips, or how did you solve that problem? Because tell people what you were doing when you got a band 5 in writing. What was happening with time management?
Well, obviously, what happened when I was producing an essay also in the band 5, that I didn't know how to write. So my level of English wasn't so good, and obviously to produce 250 words, it was a nightmare. So it's true that I also made that mistake. I said, how can I improve my timing, blah, blah, blah. No, I realized that after I got better on my grammar and how to produce, to organize myself, the only thing that I was aware is about the clock and the timing, just to be sure that you are writing on time. But I didn't have any tips for time management. This became better when I was better at doing that. And it was the same with the reading part. So you, in the moment that you read faster and you can understand everything that you're reading, you don't need time. And you're not going to struggle with that on the moment that you get better. It sounds horrible, but but because I was looking for that tip.
Yeah,
But
because everyone wants the easy way. I always say, if I could give you the easy way, I would give it to you. And there are some things on the course that are little tips and that are, little shortcuts. But 99% of the things that we teach are the opposite of tips and shortcuts.
Yeah.
And the story I always tell about time management is, if you look at Usain Bolt running the 100 meters. Is he faster than everyone else because he went and looked for time management tips?
No,
he's better at running. He's faster at running. So the way to become, to improve your time management for reading is become better at reading. For writing, become better at writing. For listening, become better at listening. Yeah. Which sounds very simple, but when people hear me say that, they think, oh, that's obvious, that's simple. It's like, no, what you're really saying is, you understand that that's going to take work and you don't want to do the work. Yeah. You want me to give you top 10 magic super tips.
And there's
because that's what you are looking for, because you want to save time. Ironically, by saving time, you're going to mess up your time management.
The only tip that I remember about time management that I found it very useful, it was for the reading part. I found this girl that she was saying that she trying to do the first passage in 15 minutes, 15, and the second 20, and the third 25.
Because it gets more difficult as you go through. A big mistake people make is they think that, I'll spend 2 minutes on each question. It's like no. It's like or 1 minute on the do the first part as quickly as you can, and that will give you more time to focus on the more difficult stuff. So we've talked a lot about the different mistakes that you can make, and we've talked a lot about your advice to students in different areas. Let's finish up by talking about if your brother or sister or a family member or your best friend was doing the test, any other advice that you would give them apart from the things we've talked about already?
Well, the main advice I will say to someone is to set what is your purpose, so why you are doing this, trying to remain honest and realistic about your current situation and your level of English, that you are not going to be as good as you wish, but you can work on that and in order to improve. And please find professional expertise, because otherwise you are going to spend a lot of money and you're going to waste time, and it's better to find a good place and follow certain structures rather than, I don't know, doing that your own and don't be successful in the time that you wanted.
I mean, you talked about purpose. What did you think about when you thought about why am I doing this test? What kept you motivated?
Well, the thing is, my main motivation was to work in England, but that was like too big, so a too wide goal. So then I narrowed this goal and said, Andrea, my main purpose was to be able to express my ideas in English. So that was my main idea. So, and then I knew that by doing that, I will improve and I will obtain my score. So, and then I will obtain my job here. But I was trying to put that more realistic and more useful in the future, that I knew that, okay, I'm going to use my vocabulary in order to communicate with other people.
The students that I've worked with that have done the most work and made the most progress, normally they have two purposes, two main motivations. One is internal, so they are trying to improve themselves in some way, either by like you said, improving their communication skills, or often it's because they know that once they get this score, they'll be able to do a job that will help them grow as a person, and it will make them much happier, and they'll be more fulfilled. Or someone like you, who you'll be working on breast cancer and lung cancer, and that is a huge motivation. The other motivation, and I think this is the most powerful one, is they think of things bigger than themselves. So, for example, for me, the reason why I'm very motivated is because I think of my wife and my son, and that keeps me going, and I work very hard often I will hear people talking about that they want to do it for their family or for other people, or like you, they want to go and do a job, a nurse or a doctor or an engineer that will help a huge number of people. So whenever you feel a little bit down or demotivated, try and think of something bigger than yourself, and because it is difficult, everything is difficult, but like anything, the more difficult it is, the bigger the achievement.
And the way that you are going to feel in the moment that you obtain your score is unbelievable. That moment, guys, is priceless.
Fridays are always the best day for us, because we look in the Facebook group and we see I got this score, I got this score, I got this score, and that's really motivating for us. And you talked also about being honest with yourself. That is so important. Is a lot of people, the people that are most, I'm not being very fluent here or very coherent, the people who are easiest to lie to are ourselves. So a lot of people will say things like, I don't have time. It's like, you have 24 hours in a day, you chose to do something else. Or they'll say, this is just too difficult. Or they'll say things like, it's not my fault, it's the teacher's fault, or it is the test's fault, or it is whoever's fault. It's like, you need to take responsibility for your own development and your own performance. And if you have that very humble attitude, then you're going to do very well. And we have that attitude in our team as well. We always look for people on our team who are very humble, because we don't want people running around blaming everybody else and never wanting to get better. We want to work with people, and we want to work with students who just are always, how can I get better? And it's my responsibility. So that, I think, purpose and humility and being honest with yourself are really, really important. So that's great. That's great advice. If people just did those two things, they would be able to work very hard over a long period of time, and they would constantly improve because they are always thinking, how can I get better? So that's great advice. So before we finish, any last minute things that you would tell people?
Well, the most important thing is that you have to believe in yourself, and you have to work on whatever you want. You need to work, because you are going to be able to achieve your score. The thing is, work every day, a little bit, and then at the end of the month, at the end of that week, you will be better than at the beginning. So do that, and you are going to obtain your score.
Thank you so much, Andrea. It was really, really helpful for the people watching. And the reason why we do these is there's a lot of confusing and conflicting information out there, and people don't know where to turn or who to believe. So someone like you, who has gone from really struggling and doing the test over and over to getting a band 8 overall, moving from a band 5 to a band 7 in writing is unbelievable. So thank you so much, and I hope that you get your job here in Cambridge. And
yes, I will let you know.
Hey, Chris here again. Hopefully you enjoyed that success story video. That student was part of our IELTS VIP course, and on that course we show students exactly where they're going wrong and exactly what to do to get the score that they need. And we give them all the help and support that they need in order to get a 7, 8 or even 9 in their IELTS test. Now, we only work with a really, really small number of students. Because of the level of help and feedback and support that we give students, we can only work with a very, very small number of them. But we also have more success stories than any other online or offline course in the world, which has created a huge amount of demand for our course. So we're the only course in the world, I believe, that has a very, very, very long waiting list. If you want to join that waiting list, all you have to do is just click here and you'll be able to add your name, add your email address, and then when one of our students becomes successful and leaves the course, the next position can be for you. Hopefully see you in there. Bye-bye.